It's at GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. I had a muck of the week. We're talking about XL bullies amongst many other things. Wendy says, what reason is there to have one of those XL bully dogs? Exactly. She says, I walk everywhere, I have no car and I'm scared. Those dogs are unpredictable. How stupid to want one, never mind two. Exactly. Why? Martin says this government needs to get a grip of this violent dog problem and ban all potentially killer dogs. I agree with you. I'd make them highly... If you have one, it has to be insured. You'd be paying £5 for a licence. No one would be able to afford one. Rob says the only way to sort this issue is to bring back the dog licence and include public liability insurance as part of the scheme. Compulsory microchipping and registration for all dogs would also help. That's my idea. Excellent. Right, keep your thoughts coming. gbviews@gbnews.com. But now it's time for climate control. Electric vehicles, now they have been sold as a solution to the climate crisis, and they are the best way to reach net zero. But ministers have been warned that the rush to electric vehicles could cost the economy £9 billion by 2030 in lost fuel duty receipts. Now, the warning arose during a House of Lords hearing in the Environment and Climate Change Committee, which is actually looking into whether the 2030 ban is realistic. I think they could save a lot of time. It's not realistic. So, as we push further with net zero, are EVs actually a viable solution? Well, I'm joined now by Lewis Perry, Director of Car26, and Jim Dale, Senior Meteorologist. I'm going to start with you, Lois. £9 billion, this wonderful panacea, an electric car, lost duty.
Yeah, well, this hasn't been thought through, or has it been thought through? And the ultimate aim is, number one, in the first instance, that electric cars will not be exempt, almost probably straight away. So they'll be taxing those vehicles in the same way that they have been petrol and diesel. And also, it depends what you think the solution is. The solution that the civil service want is that, ultimately, we're all out of our cars. So, actually, they don't really care about the loss of revenues because they'll just find other ways to tax us by stealth in other places, like, for example, putting fines on the boiler companies for not producing the right amount of heat pumps, even though nobody wants them, and then doing a by stealth boiler tax, which is what's happening at the moment and hasn't been announced. So, you know, they'll always make money elsewhere. But, you know, this is about getting people, and I say this every time I come on, getting people out of their cars, nothing to do with being greener. It's about keeping us at home in our little boxes looking at screens.
Well, we're in little boxes looking at screens. I'm looking at you, Jim Dale. What is your response to Lois?
My response to the Lois and to the Daily Mail, I think this was reported in the Daily Mail, which usually purports to go for lower taxes. This is all about lower taxes. Remember, this is taxes not going to the government, and I thought they were in favour of all of this. So there's three things here: lower taxes for the population, lower climate changing gases, and less air pollutants. So there's a three strikes here that to me sound very appealing indeed. I don't see a problem with it. I don't know why the Daily Mail is doing what they're doing.
So what was your first one? Lower taxes, yeah?
Lower taxes. Essentially, you don't pay taxes on electric cars going forward. So
hang on, lower taxes. And what was the second one? Lower taxes?
Lower climate changing gases, in other words, fewer polluting cars, and less air pollutants in terms of the climate change side of things.
Well, so it seems that taxes have been going up, hasn't it, for this, Lewis?
But most people, Jim, the vast majority of people will not be able to afford an electric car. So I'm so sorry, I don't understand your reasoning there. How is it lower taxes if people can't afford an electric car? Because, as I say, the vast majority won't be able to, and they haven't got a driveway to charge.
Let Jim answer that, Jim.
Yeah, OK, so the answer is this is an evolving thing. So we in the last 3 years, the sales of electric cars worldwide have gone from 5% to 15% of all cars. So that's the first thing to say. This is in one direction. And yes, this will take time, and there's an affordability scenario there. But bit by bit, just like any advancement that we make in society, you know, people will be able to afford the whole.
OK, so you admit,
on the government side.
Jim, so you're admitting that it's going to be quite costly, so that sort of flies in the face of what you said. But lower taxes, you also said lower emissions. Lois, he said lower emissions.
Yeah, well, it isn't lower emissions because what will happen is that, you know, for example, making an electric vehicle, we now know is actually higher CO2 emissions, if that's your bag, than actually producing petrol and diesel vehicles. That's actually, you know, all the major car manufacturers said it can take up to 8 years for it to become CO2 neutral. But, you know, the whole thing doesn't make any sense because you're talking about the poorest in society, white van man, all of these people not being able to get around, and you're saying that that's a good thing.
No, he said it would take time. Didn't you, Jim? Is that what you said?
I see plenty of white van electrics nowadays. And by the way, the poorest people don't have cars. Let's make this absolutely clear. You're
Well,
not
they certainly
supporting
won't with you in charge. They certainly won't.
Those people do not have cars, and so you're not actually supporting them in any shape or form.
Do you think people should be able to drive? Do you think people should have the right to be able to drive, or do you think that ultimately people should be walking, using public transport?
There is a choice, and if public transport was in the right place, I think more people would use it.
No, you didn't answer
London's
the
a very
question.
good example of people using public transport en masse. I think that's becoming more and more. I think it's a desirable thing. It's not taking away choice. People will always have the choice if they can afford it. The hole that we're talking about is a hole in the exchequer. And this is why I have a problem with the Daily Mail, because, as I said forever, they've been saying lower taxes, lower taxes. Suddenly we're getting lower taxes going into the exchequer.
Hold on. You're saying they've been saying lower taxes for what? Sorry. Lower taxes for what? I don't think they've been saying lower taxes for
lower taxes into, well, the whole is the exchequer's whole. You said 9 billion.
Yes,
Let me give you another figure.
No, but you said the Daily Mail have been saying lower taxes. I'm just correcting you. I've never read that in there. They've been saying that this will bring in lower taxes.
No. I mean that their whole stand is for lower taxes for the population, or is lower.
I think
lower
most
your
people want lower taxes.
Lower the tax take.
Well, I think most people want lower taxes, but if you've got more people working, then you get a higher tax take. So if you could have a low rate of tax, but you could have a higher tax take if you've got a growing economy. So that was the sort of Liz Truss vision, yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the 9 billion then with this electric revolution, because Jim, that's a big hole and that's going to have to be filled. In your view, where do you see them getting that from?
Okay, so let me give you just one small example. So in the first 3 months of this year, going back a little bit, we had one oil company, BP, who made 5 billion profit, not turnover, profit, 5 billion. That's one. Okay, so if you're looking for bolt-ons where we might be able to take some of that back, then the oil companies, the fossil fuel companies, are exactly that, untouched so far.
Can I just make the point that the reason that they're profitable? Sorry, can I just
briefly?
The reason that they're profitable is because they actually make money rather than receive government subsidies, which all of the renewables need massive government subsidies. They're profitable because they actually work and because they actually keep the British economy going.
All right, can I give Jim Dale? You've got 10 seconds to reply, then I've got to move on for the news.
So in that case, they're profitable. Absolutely. Let's take some of that profit away from them to solve all the problems that we've just been talked about in terms of tax, in terms of emissions, in terms of climate change, and particularly what's going on around the world. And we've seen that in absolute stark terms in Derna in Libya this week.
Well, OK, thank you very much for that, Jim Dale. Good to talk to you. He's a senior meteorologist. And also Lois Perry, director of Car26. Thank you so much. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, this week's political spotlight, former UKIP leader Henry Bolton on Sir Keir Starmer heading around the EU trying to sell his latest migrant plan. But first, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.